6 months after the first human ships had left Earth, President Elena Martinez stood before the Galactic Assembly on New Geneva Station, looking out at delegates from over 400 worlds. Half of them had been slaves under the hegemony. The other half had been members of species so primitive the hegemony had never bothered to contact them. Now they all sat together as equals, voting on laws that would govern a new kind of galactic civilization. The motion to establish universal healthcare standards passes by a vote of 312 to 88, announced the Secretary General, a tall creature with blue skin and 4 eyes who had once been a hegemony administrator. The next item on our agenda is the proposal for mandatory education rights for all sapient beings. Martinez smiled as she watched the delegates debate. It had taken humanity exactly 187 days to completely dismantle an empire that had lasted 3,000 years, but they hadn't done it through superior firepower alone. They had done it by offering something the galaxy had never seen before, a government that actually served its people. In the back of the assembly hall, former High Commander Vex sat in the observer section, taking notes. He had chosen to join the Terran Coalition after completing his re-education program, and now served as a historical advisor, helping to document the crimes of the old hegemony and ensure they were never repeated. "Remarkable," whispered the delegate sitting next to him, a small reptilian creature from one of the Outer Rim worlds. "6 months ago, I was hiding in caves to avoid hegemony slave raids. Now I'm helping to write laws that will protect my grandchildren." Vex nodded slowly. He was still adjusting to the idea that governments could exist to protect people rather than control them. Admiral Volkov entered the assembly hall during a recess, her black uniform drawing respectful nods from delegates throughout the room. The Black Fleet had become legendary across the galaxy, but not for the reasons she had expected. "Admiral," called out Martinez as Volkov approached, "how are the integration programs proceeding?" "Better than projected, Madam President. We've successfully transitioned 438 former hegemony worlds to coalition membership. Only 12 worlds have chosen to remain independent, and they're all maintaining peaceful relations with us. And the hegemony loyalists? Down to about 300 ships scattered across the Outer Rim. They're calling themselves the true hegemony now, but they're more of a refugee fleet than a military threat. Most of their personnel are requesting asylum on coalition worlds." Dr. Sarah Kim joined the conversation, carrying a tablet full of data. "The psychological integration studies are showing fascinating results. Former hegemony citizens are adapting to democratic systems faster than we anticipated. It turns out that when people are given real choices about their lives, they become very motivated to make those choices work." A young aide approached the group, carrying an urgent message pad. "Madam President, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. It's marked as urgent diplomatic traffic." Martinez took the pad and read quickly, her eyebrows rising. "Well, this is interesting. Admiral, it seems we have visitors." "What kind of visitors?" "A delegation from the Andromedan Collective. They want to discuss mutual cooperation and peaceful coexistence between galactic civilizations." Volkov's expression hardened. "Intelligence reports suggest the Andromedans have been watching our conflict with the hegemony. They probably want to negotiate before we turn our attention to their territory. Or," Dr. Kim said thoughtfully, "they've heard about our integration policies and want to learn from them. The reports say their own empire is facing internal stability problems." Martinez considered this. The Andromedan Collective controlled a significant portion of the neighboring galaxy, and their technology was reportedly even more advanced than the hegemonies had been, but they had also ruled through fear and oppression for even longer. "What's our military status, Admiral?" "The Black Fleet is at full strength. 800 ships now, with more launching every month. We've also got about 2,000 former hegemony vessels that have been refitted with our technology. And," Volkov smiled grimly, "we've got about 4 million former hegemony personnel who are very eager to help us liberate anyone else who might be suffering under similar oppression." 4 million? Turns out that once people get a taste of freedom, they become very enthusiastic about sharing it with others. As if summoned by their conversation, a group of delegates approached. Leading them was a tall, crystalline being who had once been a hegemony enforcer. Behind him walked representatives from dozens of species, all wearing the blue armbands that identified them as Coalition Integration Specialists. "Madam President," the crystalline being said in accented but clear English, "we have completed our review of the Andromedan situation. Our recommendation is immediate diplomatic contact, followed by offers of integration assistance if they prove receptive." "And if they're not receptive?" Martinez asked. Another delegate, this one a furry creature with 6 arms, stepped forward. "Then we help their people understand that there are alternatives to oppression, the same way the humans helped us. Dr. Kim looked at her tablet. "We're already receiving communications from Andromedan resistance groups. Word about the coalition is spreading faster than their government can suppress it." Martinez looked around at the assembled delegates. Former slaves, former oppressors, former enemies, all working together to build something better than what had come before. It was messy and complicated and sometimes chaotic, but it was also something the galaxy had never seen, a government based on consent rather than conquest. "Admiral Volkov," she said finally, "prepare the diplomatic fleet. But make sure it includes plenty of Black Fleet vessels. Sometimes the best diplomacy comes from a position of visible strength." "And if diplomacy fails?" Martinez's smile was sharp and cold, the same expression she had worn when delivering her fake surrender speech 6 months earlier. "Then we remind the Andromedans of the lesson we taught the hegemony. Governments exist to serve their people, not the other way around. And if they won't serve their people willingly, we'll help their people find new governments that will," Volkov finished. As the assembly session resumed, Martinez took her place at the podium to address the delegates. Behind her, on screens visible throughout the hall, displayed the motto that had become the unofficial slogan of the Terran Coalition: "Earth remembers." "My fellow beings," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's translation systems. "6 months ago, a powerful empire came to Earth and demanded that humanity kneel. They expected us to surrender our freedom, our dignity, and our right to determine our own destiny." The hall fell silent as delegates listened to words they had heard before, but never tired of hearing. Instead, we reminded them of something that tyrants always forget. Free beings will always fight for their freedom. And once they taste it, they will never willingly give it up. A cheer went up from the delegates, representing hundreds of species, and thousands of worlds, all united by the simple idea that people should be allowed to choose their own governments. "Today we face new challenges from those who would return the galaxy to the old ways of fear and oppression. But we face them together, as equals, as partners in the great work of building a civilization worthy of all its members." Outside the station's windows, the Black Fleet maintained its patrol, sleek ships bearing the combined symbols of Earth and the Coalition, moving in precise formations through space. They were no longer just humanity's defense force. They had become the guardians of freedom for an entire galaxy. And in the deepest space between galaxies, long-range sensors detected the first Andromedan scout ships, their commanders probably, expecting to find the same kind of primitive civilization that the hegemony had expected to conquer. They were about to learn the say. The massive research ship Harmony of Stars shook violently as another explosion ripped through its lower decks. Captain Zarathul gripped her command chair with all 4 of her blue-skinned hands, watching the disaster unfold on her screens. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge while her crew worked frantically at their stations. "Report!" she barked to her science officer, a tall insect-like Catharan named Click-Thess. "The quantum drive has completely destabilized, Captain," Click-Thess replied, his translated voice crackling through the ship's failing communication system. "The containment field is collapsing. We have maybe 12 hours before the reaction tears the ship apart." Zarathul felt her heart sink. The Harmony of Stars was the pride of the Galactic Council, carrying 3,000 of the brightest minds from 17 different species. They had come to the Omega Nebula to study its unique properties, hoping to unlock new technologies for peaceful exploration. Instead, their experimental quantum drive had malfunctioned in the worst possible place. The nebula's strange energy fields made faster-than-light travel impossible for most ships. ITME lesson their predecessors had learned: humanity and its allies didn't kneel to anyone. Instead, they had become the galaxy's way of teaching bullies that there was always someone bigger, smarter, and more determined waiting in the dark. The age of galactic tyranny was over. The age of galactic freedom had begun. The bridge of the Fenrir was quiet, except for the soft hum of advanced computers and the gentle whisper of air recycling systems. Admiral Sarah Chen sat in her command chair, reading reports from across the Sol system. Her ship drifted in the outer darkness beyond Pluto, hidden from any casual observers by stealth technology that made her vessel nearly invisible. The Fenrir was a kilometer long and packed with enough firepower to level a small moon, but she moved through space like a ghost. Her hull was covered in adaptive armor that could change color and texture to match the surrounding void. Her engines produced almost no heat signature, and her communication systems used quantum encryption that no known species could break. She was one of 24 ships in Ghost Squadron, humanity's most elite naval unit. While the rest of the galaxy believed humans were contained in their home system, the Ghost Squadron had been quietly watching and learning for 30 years. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Rodriguez from the communications station, "we're picking up a broad-spectrum distress call. It's coming from the Omega Nebula." Chen looked up from her reports. The Omega Nebula was deep in Council space, far from any human territory. "What kind of distress call?" "It's a Council research vessel called the Harmony of Stars. They're reporting a quantum drive failure and requesting immediate assistance. The signal is being broadcast on all frequencies, including our restricted channels." Chen frowned. No Council ship had attempted to contact humans in 30 years. For them to include human frequencies in their distress call meant they were truly desperate. "Put it through," she ordered. The message played across the bridge speakers. Captain Zarathul's voice was calm and professional, but Chen could hear the fear underneath. 3,000 souls trapped in a failing ship, surrounded by enemies, with death approaching from all directions. "What's their tactical situation?" Chen asked her intelligence officer, Commander Park. Park's fingers danced across his console as he pulled up everything the Sol system's spy satellites had recorded. "The Harmony of Stars is a research vessel with minimal weapons. Their quantum drive has destabilized, and they're losing structural integrity. We're detecting approximately 200 Void Hunter ships converging on their position." 200? Chen said quietly. The Void Hunters were scavengers and slavers, but they were also experienced fighters. 200 of their ships would be more than enough to overwhelm a single research vessel. "Admiral," Rodriguez said hesitantly, "the nearest Council rescue fleet is 72 hours away. The research vessel has maybe 10 hours before their drive explodes." Chen stared at the tactical display floating in front of her chair. The Omega Nebula was 6 hours away at maximum speed. That would give them 4 hours to evacuate 3,000 people from a ship that was tearing itself apart, while fighting off 200 enemy vessels. "Ma'am," Park added, "there's something else. Long-range sensors show more Void Hunter fleets moving toward the nebula. They must have heard the distress call, too. By the time we arrived, there could be 300 enemy ships or more." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew the math. Even the Ghost Squadron, with all their advanced technology and training, had never faced odds like these. They were good, but they weren't miracle workers. "Admiral," came a voice from behind her. Chen turned to see her tactical officer, Commander Williams, approaching with a serious expression. "I need to speak with you privately." Chen nodded and walked to the edge of the bridge where they couldn't be overheard. Williams was a veteran of the border wars, one of the few officers who had been there when humanity first revealed what they were capable of. "Sarah," Williams said quietly, "you're thinking about responding to that distress call. 3,000 innocent people, Mike, scientists and diplomats, not soldiers. I know, but if we move on this without authorization from Earth Command, we'll be starting something we can't stop. The Council exiled us for a reason." Chen looked out at the stars through the bridge's main view screen. Somewhere out there, people were dying while politicians and bureaucrats worried about protocols and treaties. "The Council exiled us because they were afraid of what we might do," she said. "Maybe it's time we reminded them why." Williams studied her face. "You're serious about this?" "Dead serious." "How long would it take to assemble the full squadron?" Williams checked his wrist computer. "Ghost Squadron is spread across the outer system on patrol duties. If we activate Emergency Protocol 7, we could have 24 ships ready for jump in 90 minutes. Emergency Protocol 7 was the code for immediate action without authorization. It had only been used twice in the squadron's history, both times during training exercises. Never for real combat. "Do it," Chen ordered. Williams hesitated. "Sarah, if we do this and things go bad, Earth Command will court-martial us all. And if we succeed, the galaxy will remember that humans are still out here, still dangerous." "Good," Chen said firmly. "Maybe it's time they remembered." She walked back to her command chair and activated the fleet communications system. Across the Sol system, 23 other ships received her signals simultaneously. "Attention, Ghost Squadron," her voice carried to every vessel in the unit. "We have a humanitarian crisis in the Omega Nebula. A Council research vessel with 3,000 souls on board is under attack by Void Hunter fleets. The nearest Council rescue force is 3 days away. We are the only ones who can reach them in time." She paused, looking around at her bridge crew. Every face showed the same mixture of determination and concern. "I won't lie to you," she continued. "This mission will be dangerous. We'll be outnumbered, at least 10 to 1, fighting in hostile territory with no backup and no way home if things go wrong. I'm not ordering anyone to follow me. This is volunteer only." Within seconds, her communications board lit up with responses from every ship in the squadron. Not one of them declined. Commander Torres from the Wolverine came through first. "Ghost Leader, we're already moving to rendezvous coordinates." Captain Morrison from the Shadowhawk was next. "Ma'am, my crew is insulted you thought we might not." "Volunteer." One by one, the other captains checked in. Some made jokes, others just confirmed their readiness. But the message was clear. Ghost Squadron was going to war. Chen looked at Williams, who was shaking his head but smiling. "Well, Admiral, looks like you've got your fleet. What's the plan?" Chen pulled up the tactical display and began studying the approach routes to the Omega Nebula. The region was notorious for its sensor interference and navigation hazards, which was why the Void Hunters felt safe operating there. But the same conditions that protected them would also hide the approach of human ships. "We go in fast and quiet," she said. "Use the nebula's interference to mask our approach. Hit the Void Hunters before they know we're there. And then we do what humans do best," Chen said grimly. "We adapt, we overcome, and we bring our people home." The Fenrir's engines came online with a barely audible hum. Around the Sol system, 23 other ships began moving toward the rendezvous point. They were sleek, deadly vessels designed for one purpose: to go places other ships couldn't go and do things other species wouldn't dare attempt. As the fleet formed up for the jump to the Omega Nebula, Chen sent one final message to Earth Command. It was brief and to the point. "Ghost Squadron responding to humanitarian crisis. Will report upon return." She knew there would be consequences for this decision, but 3,000 innocent people were about to die, and she was the only one in position to save them. The politicians could sort out the aftermath later. "All ships report ready for jump," Rodriguez announced. Chen looked at the tactical display one more time. In 6 hours, they would either be heroes or casualties. But either way, the galaxy was about to remember why humans had once been feared. "Jump," she ordered. 24 ships vanished into hyperspace, racing toward a battle that would change everything. Captain Zara Thul stared at her sensor display in complete confusion. Her ship was dying around her. Void Hunter fleets were closing in from all directions, and now her sensors were showing impossible readings. "Commander Hess," she called to her first officer. "Are the sensors malfunctioning?" The reptilian officer checked his instruments carefully. "No, Captain. All systems are reading normally, but I don't understand what we're seeing." The Void Hunter ships were disappearing. Not retreating, not jumping to hyperspace, simply vanishing from the sensors one by one. In the past 10 minutes, over 50 enemy vessels had gone dark. There were no explosion signatures, no distress calls, no signs of battle. They were just gone. "Could it be some kind of natural phenomenon?" Clickthess suggested nervously. "Maybe. The nebula is causing some kind of spatial distortion?" Before anyone could answer, the harmony of stars shook violently. Another section of the quantum drive had failed, sending shockwaves through the ship's structure. Warning lights flashed across every station as systems continued to shut down. "We're losing life support on decks 8 through 11, the engineering officer reported. The reaction is spreading faster than our models predicted. We have maybe 6 hours left. Zarathul felt her hopes fading. Even if some unknown force was dealing with the Void Hunters, her ship would tear itself apart long before any rescue could arrive. She was about to order the crew to prepare for evacuation when her communications officer suddenly straightened up. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission on a secure channel. It's in perfect Altarian." Zarathul's 4 eyes widened. Very few non-Altarians could speak her native language, and none of them should be in this region of space. "Put it through," she ordered. A calm female voice filled the bridge. "Council vessel Harmony of Stars. This is Admiral Chen of the Terran vessel Fenrir. We have received your distress call and are moving to assist. Please maintain your current position and prepare to receive our engineers." The bridge fell completely silent. Every crew member stared at the communication console as if it had just announced the end of the universe. Did she say Terran?" Commander Hess whispered. Before Zarathul could respond, her tactical officer's voice cracked with fear. "Captain, new contacts appearing on sensors. 24 ships, configuration unknown. They're right on top of us." Zarathul looked at her display and felt her blood turn to ice. The human ships hadn't approached gradually like normal vessels. They had simply appeared out of nowhere, already in perfect formation around her ship. It was as if they had materialized from the void itself. "How did they get so close without us detecting them?" she asked. "I don't know," her tactical officer replied. "Our sensors show empty space, but the quantum resonance readings confirm they're there. It's like they're invisible until you look directly at them." On the main screen, space shimmered and suddenly revealed the outline of a massive warship. The Fenrir was unlike anything Zarathul had ever seen. It was sleek and predatory, covered in what looked like living metal that shifted and flowed like liquid. Weapon ports opened and closed along its hull like breathing, and its engines glowed with an eerie blue light. "By the void," Clickthess breathed. "It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time." More ships began decloaking around them. Each one was different in design, but shared the same predatory elegance. They moved through space with fluid grace, like a school of metallic sharks circling wounded prey. Admiral Chen's voice came through the speakers again. "Captain Zarathul, we're going to begin clearing the hostile vessels from your area. Please, keep your crew away from the outer hull sections while we work." "Wait," Zarathul managed to say. "There are over 300 Void Hunter ships out there. You only have 24 vessels." There was a pause before Chen responded. "Captain, you called for help. Let us help." On the tactical display, the remaining Void Hunter ships were beginning to react to the human presence. Alert signals flashed across their formations as they detected the Ghost Squadron. Within minutes, over 200 enemy vessels were moving into attack position. "They're forming up for a coordinated assault," Commander Hess reported. "All ships are powering weapons and moving to surround us." Zarathul watched in fascination as the human ships responded. They didn't form up in the traditional defensive patterns taught in military academies. Instead, they scattered like leaves. In the wind, each vessel taking a seemingly random course through the enemy formation. "What are they doing?" she asked no one in particular. Her answer came in the form of explosions beginning to blossom throughout the Void Hunter fleet. The human ships were weaving through the enemy formation at impossible speeds, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Their weapons fired with perfect accuracy, targeting critical systems with surgical precision. A void. Hunter cruiser exploded as its reactor was hit. Another ship went dark as its command center was destroyed. A third vessel simply broke apart, as its structural supports were severed by precisely placed shots. "They're not fighting," Clickthess observed with awe. "They're hunting." Zarathul realized he was right. The human ships moved like predators, stalking prey through a forest. They used the nebula's interference to mask their positions, struck without warning, and vanished before the enemy could respond. It wasn't battle in the traditional sense. It was a carefully orchestrated slaughter. The Void Hunters tried to adapt. They formed tighter formations, used suppressing fire to clear areas of space, and even attempted to ram the human vessels. Nothing worked. The human ships seemed to anticipate every move, always staying one step ahead of their enemies. "How are they doing this?" Commander Hess asked in amazement. Zarathul watched as a human destroyer appeared directly behind a Void Hunter battleship, fired a single torpedo, and vanished again before the enemy's point defense systems could even target it. The battleship's engines exploded, leaving the massive vessel drifting helplessly. They're computers, she realized. Look at how they coordinate their movements. Every ship knows exactly where every other ship is at all times. They're not just fighting as individual vessels. They're fighting as a single organism with 24 bodies. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 18 minutes. When it was over, the space around the Harmony of Stars was filled with debris and lifeless hulks. Not a single Void Hunter ship remained functional. The human fleet had achieved complete victory without taking any apparent damage. Admiral Chen's voice returned to the speakers. All hostile vessels have been neutralized, Captain Zarathul. We're now sending over engineering teams to assist with your quantum drive situation. Please have your people stand by to receive them. Admiral, Zarathul said carefully, I need to ask. The Council placed restrictions on contact with your people after the border wars. Won't there be political consequences for this rescue? There was a long pause before Chen answered. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter but firm. Captain, there are 3,000 innocent people on your ship who are about to die. Politics can wait. Zarathul felt something she had never expected to feel about humans. Respect. These were the same people who had terrified the galaxy with their ruthless efficiency in warfare. But they had just risked everything to save strangers who had never shown them any kindness. We are grateful for your assistance, she managed to say. Don't thank us yet, Chen replied. We still have to fix your ship and get you out of here safely. And Captain, you might want to prepare your crew for what they're about to see. Human engineering methods can be a bit intense. As if on cue, small craft began launching from the human vessels. These weren't the bulky shuttles most species used, but sleek fighters that moved like living things through space. They approached the Harmony of Stars with the same fluid grace their motherships had shown. Zarathul watched them dock with her ship and realized that everything was about to change. The humans had broken their exile to save her people. There would be consequences for everyone involved. But for the first time in hours, she actually believed they might all survive to face those consequences. And that was more than she had dared hope for when she authorized that desperate distress call. Tutter. Humans had come. Now she would see what they could really do when they weren't trying to destroy something, but to save it. Captain Zarathul had seen many different species working together during her years in the Council fleet, but she had never seen anything like the humans who came aboard her ship. They moved with purpose and efficiency that seemed almost supernatural, carrying equipment she didn't recognize and speaking in quick, precise bursts to each other. Commander Maria Santos led the human engineering team into the Harmony of Stars engine room. She was a compact woman with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing a form-fitting suit covered in tools and sensors. Her eyes took in the massive quantum drive chamber in seconds, cataloging every detail with mechanical precision. Well, this is a mess, she said cheerfully to Zarathul, who had insisted on accompanying the humans personally. But I've seen worse. We can fix this. Zarathul stared at the human engineer in disbelief. The quantum drive chamber looked like a war zone. Massive energy conduits had melted and fused together. The containment field generators were sparking and failing. Sections of the chamber wall had been warped by uncontrolled quantum reactions. Her own engineers had declared the situation hopeless. Commander Santos, she said carefully, our best scientists believe the drive is beyond repair. The quantum reaction is too unstable to approach safely. Santos grinned and pulled out a device that looked like a handheld scanner crossed with a weapon. That's because they're thinking about this wrong. You can't stop a quantum cascade once it starts, but you can redirect it. She began walking around the chamber, her scanner beeping and chirping as it analyzed the failing systems. Her team spread out behind her, each one carrying equipment that seemed to defy known physics. One engineer was setting up what looked like a portable fusion reactor. Another was assembling a device that created small tears in space-time. The problem, Santos continued as she worked, is that your containment field is trying to suppress the quantum reaction entirely. That's like trying to stop a river with your bare hands. Instead, we're going to give it somewhere to go." She gestured to her team, who began setting up their equipment with practiced efficiency. Zarathul watched in fascination as they worked. Every movement was precise and purposeful. They didn't waste time on lengthy discussions or complex planning. They simply acted with perfect coordination. "How do you coordinate so well?" she asked Santos. "Your team moves like they share a single mind." "Neural links," Santos replied absently, focused on her scanner readings. "We're all connected through our suit computers. I can see what they see, know what they know. Makes complex operations like this much easier." The human engineer knelt next to a massive quantum coil that was crackling with dangerous energy. Any normal being would have needed heavy protective gear to get so close, but Santos simply adjusted a setting on her suit and walked right up to it. "The trick," she explained, as she began working, "is understanding that quantum fields don't follow normal rules. They exist in multiple states simultaneously until observed and measured. So instead of trying to contain the reaction in one stable state, we create a controlled superposition." Zarathul had studied quantum mechanics at the academy, but Santos was talking about applications she had never heard of. "How do you create a controlled superposition in a failing drive system?" Carefully, Santos grinned. She attached a small device to the quantum coil, and immediately the dangerous crackling stopped. "We use quantum tunneling to create parallel processing channels. Instead of one reaction trying to destroy your ship, we now have 17 smaller reactions that we can manage independently." Around the chamber, her team was making similar modifications to other systems. They worked with tools that seemed to bend reality itself, creating stable fields in areas that should have been impossible to approach. What should have taken days of careful preparation was happening in real time. "Commander," Zarathul said, nervously, "what happens if you make a mistake? If those quantum fields destabilize further?" "Then we all die horribly," Santos said without looking up from her work. "But that was going to happen anyway, so we might as well try something." Her casual attitude about the danger should have been terrifying, but somehow Zarathul found it reassuring. These humans weren't reckless. They were simply so competent that what seemed impossible to other species was just another day's work for them. "Field generators are online," called one of Santos's team members. "Quantum cascade has been redirected into parallel channels. We're seeing stable containment across all 17 reaction streams." "Excellent," Santos replied. "Begin Phase 2. Phase 2, it turned out, involved rebuilding major sections of the quantum drive using materials that the humans manufactured on the spot. They had brought mobile fabricators, machines that could create complex components from raw atoms using patterns stored in their computers. "Where did you learn to do this?" Zarathul asked as she watched them create a new containment field generator from nothing but energy and basic elements. "Trial and error," Santos said. "Humans are good at adapting existing technology for new uses. Your quantum drive is based on Altarian designs from 50 years ago, but we've been studying the principles for decades. We just apply them differently." What followed was the most impressive display of engineering Zarathul had ever witnessed. The humans didn't just repair the failing systems, they improved them. They added redundant safety systems, upgraded the efficiency ratings, and even installed new components that made the drive run smoother than it had when originally built. "The problem with most species," Santos explained as she fine-tuned the primary quantum resonance chamber, "is that they build things to last forever. Very conservative, very safe, very predictable. Humans build things to work under impossible conditions and then make them work better when those conditions change." The repair work took 4 hours. When it was finished, the quantum drive was not only stable but actually performing 30% better than factory specifications. The human team packed up their equipment with the same efficient precision they had shown throughout the operation. "That should do it," Santos announced, wiping her hands on a cloth that instantly dissolved the quantum residue that had accumulated on her gloves. "Your drive is now more stable than when it was first installed. We've also added some upgrades that should prevent this kind of cascade failure in the future." Zarathul ran her own scans of the drive chamber. Every reading was perfect. Systems that had been failing catastrophically were now operating at peak efficiency. It was like watching a miracle unfold through pure technical skill. "I don't understand," she said. How do you learn to do things like this? What kind of training produces engineers who can perform miracles? Santos smiled, but there was something sad in her expression. Necessity, Captain. When your species gets exiled from galactic civilization, you learn to make do with what you have. You innovate because the alternative is falling behind and becoming irrelevant. She gestured around the now-functioning drive chamber. We've spent 30 years working in isolation, improving everything we could get our hands on. Your quantum drive technology, Kitharan defensive systems, Centaurian navigation computers, we've studied it all and made it better. But why? Zarathul asked. Why spend so much effort improving the technology of species that exiled you? Because, Santos said quietly, we never stopped hoping that someday we'd be allowed to help again. And when that day came, we wanted to be ready. The human engineer began walking toward the exit, her team following behind her. As they reached the door, she turned back to Zarathul. Captain, your ship is safe now. But I want you to understand something. What we did here today, this is what humans do when we're trying to help. We're just as good at building things as we are at destroying them. Maybe better. After they left, Zarathul stood alone in the quantum drive chamber, listening to the steady hum of perfectly functioning machinery. These humans had risked everything to save her ship and crew. They had demonstrated technical skills that exceeded anything in Council databases, and they had done it all while knowing there would be political consequences. She activated her personal communicator and sent a message to Admiral Chen. The repairs are complete, Admiral. Thank you. Chen's reply came immediately. You're welcome, Captain. Now let's get you home safely. As the harmony of stars prepared to leave the Omega Nebula under human escort, Zarathul realized that everything she had believed about humans was wrong. They weren't just dangerous predators who had been exiled for the safety of the galaxy. They were dangerous predators who chose to use their abilities to protect instead of destroy. And that might be the most important difference in the galaxy. The journey from the Omega Nebula to Council space should have taken 3 days, but the human escorts cut that time in half. Their ships moved through hyperspace using navigation techniques that seemed to ignore known limitations, finding routes that normal vessels couldn't use. Captain Zarathul spent much of the trip on her bridge, watching the human fleet through her sensors. The 24 ships maintained perfect formation around her vessel, their movements synchronized like a choreographed dance. They never got too close, never made her crew feel threatened, but their presence was a constant reminder of what they were capable of. Admiral Chen had requested a private communication link on the second day of their journey. Zarathul found herself talking with the human commander for over an hour about everything from quantum physics to galactic politics. Chen was intelligent, thoughtful, and surprisingly well-informed about Council affairs. Admiral, Zarathul said during one of their conversations, "May I ask you something personal?" "Of course, Captain." "Why did you risk everything to save us? Your people have been isolated for 30 years. You could have ignored our distress call and no one would have blamed you." There was a long pause before Chen answered. "Captain, do you have children?" "Yes, 2 daughters, both serving in the Council fleet." "So do I. A daughter who's studying to be a doctor, and a son who wants to explore new worlds. When I heard your distress call, I thought about all the parents and children on your ship who would never see each other again if no one came to help." Chen's voice was quiet but firm. "The Council may have exiled us, but that doesn't mean we stopped caring about innocent people. Sometimes doing the right thing is more important than following rules." Now, as they approached the Council border, Zarathul wondered what kind of reception awaited them. Long-range sensors were already detecting multiple Council fleets converging on their position. News of the human rescue had spread quickly through official channels. "Captain," her communications officer announced, "we're receiving a transmission from the Council Defense Fleet. Admiral Korvex wants to speak with you immediately." Zarathul sighed. Admiral Korvex was the Council's top military commander, a veteran Kitharan warrior known for his strict interpretation of regulations. He would not be pleased about unauthorized contact with humans. "Put him through," she ordered. Admiral Korvex's image appeared on the main screen, his insectoid features twisted with anger. "Captain Zarathul, you will immediately order those human vessels to return to their quarantine zone. Their presence in Council space is a violation of the Exile Treaty. Admiral, Zarathul replied carefully. These humans saved my ship and 3,000 lives. They responded to our distress call when no one else could reach us in time. That is irrelevant. The treaty is clear. No human vessels are permitted in Council space under any circumstances. Before Zarathul could respond, Admiral Chen's voice cut into the transmission. Admiral Corvex, this is Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. We are operating under humanitarian protocols and will withdraw as soon as Captain Zarathul's vessel is safely in Council custody. Corvex's image turned toward Chen with obvious hostility. You have no authority here, human. Your species was exiled for good reason. Yes, Chen replied calmly. We were exiled because we were too effective at stopping your enemies. How did that work out for you? The tension in the transmission was obvious. Zarathul could see more Council ships appearing on her sensors, taking defensive positions around the human fleet. This was exactly the kind of confrontation that could lead to another war. Admiral Corvex, she said quickly, with respect, these humans have done nothing but help us. They destroyed a fleet of void hunters, repaired our ship, and escorted us safely home. They've committed no hostile acts. Their very presence is hostile, Corvex snapped. They are a threat to galactic peace. No, said a new voice. They are the solution to galactic problems. Everyone turned in surprise as another ship appeared on the communication channel. It was the Council flagship Voice of Unity, carrying Supreme Chancellor Valdris herself. The elderly Centaurian leader looked tired but determined. Chancellor, Admiral Corvex said with obvious surprise, I was not aware you were in this sector. I came as soon as I heard about the rescue, Valdris replied. Admiral Chen, I want to thank you personally for saving our people. Your actions remind us what true heroism looks like. Chen inclined her head respectfully. We only did what anyone should do, Chancellor. We couldn't stand by and watch innocent people die. And yet, Valdris said, you were the only ones who could reach them in time. The only ones willing to risk everything to help strangers who had shown you no kindness. She turned to Admiral Corvex. Admiral, I want you to escort our human guests to Council Station Alpha. They will be our honored guests while we discuss the future of human-Council relations. Chancellor, Corvex protested. The treaty clearly states, the treaty, Valdris interrupted, was written 30 years ago by people who were afraid. I'm not afraid anymore. She looked directly at Admiral Chen. Admiral, would you and your senior staff be willing to meet with the full Council? I think it's time we had an honest conversation about the mistakes we've all made. Chen was quiet for a moment, clearly considering the implications. Chancellor, if we attend this meeting, there's no guarantee we'll be allowed to leave. Some members of your council still consider us dangerous. You are dangerous, Valdris said with a slight smile. But today you proved that you're dangerous. To the right people. That's exactly what the galaxy needs. Zarathul watched this exchange with growing amazement. 30 years of isolation and mistrust were being swept away by simple honesty and mutual respect. These humans had risked everything to save strangers, and now they were being invited back into galactic civilization. Admiral Chen, she said, for what it's worth, you have my personal recommendation to the Council. What you did for us was not just heroic. It was necessary. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and we need people like you protecting the innocent. Chen smiled, and for the first time since the rescue began, she looked genuinely pleased. Thank you, Captain. That means more than you know. She activated her fleet communication system. All Ghost Squadron vessels, we are accepting Chancellor Valdris's invitation. Prepare for escort to Council Station Alpha. As the combined fleet began moving toward the Council's capital system, Zarathul composed her official report. She wrote about the quantum drive failure, the Void Hunter attack, and the human response. But most importantly, she wrote about what she had learned. Humans were indeed dangerous. Their ships were faster, their weapons more precise, their tactics more effective than anything in the Council arsenal. They could appear without warning and strike with devastating force. But they were also capable of incredible compassion and self-sacrifice. The galaxy had exiled them out of fear, but fear of the wrong thing. They should have feared what would happen without humans to protect the innocent, not what would happen with them. Her final recommendation was simple: humanity should not just be readmitted to the galactic community, they should be asked to help lead it. Because when the next crisis came, and there would always be a next crisis, the galaxy would need people who were willing to risk everything to do what was right. Admiral Chen had said it perfectly. Sometimes doing the right thing was more important than following rules. As they approached Council space, Zarathul realized that everything was about to change. The humans were coming home, and the galaxy would be safer for it. She just hoped the politicians would be smart enough to see what she had seen in that nebula. Humanity at its finest, fighting not for conquest or glory, but for the simple principle that innocent people deserve to live. That was a principle worth fighting for, and if there was one thing humans were good at, it was fighting for what they believed in. The galaxy was about to remember why that could be the most powerful force in the universe.